Hey, this is attorney Elizabeth Potts Weinstein, and what we're going to talk about today are all the things you need to do and think about before you start your business, before you do the legal setup of your business. Imagine if someone was going to build a house. They didn't think about how many bedrooms they wanted. They didn't think about how many bathrooms they're going to need. They didn't think about what are the demands of the environment that they're in, such that they should have a certain type of roof or a certain type of walls or a certain type of the way the basement is structured, or if there even is going to be a basement. Imagine if they didn't test out any of the materials or create some plans to look at them and kind of walk through them and see if they're going to work. Imagine if they just started building it. And this is what happens when a lot of people start a business, that they have some great ideas and they start creating, websites, they start to set up their LLC, they do all this stuff without doing some fundamental preparation, research, making decisions, testing that needs to be done before you start building, so you can build the right thing and be much more efficient from a time perspective and a money perspective. Let's talk about you, your needs, and your resources as the person who is starting this business. A lot of times people start with their big ideas, or they start with what the business is going to need financially, and we're going to get to that. But you're the person who is going to be working on this business and starting it. It's very important to be real about what resources do you have there to support you so you can get this business off the ground for whatever time it's going to take until it starts making money. So first, let's look at how much money do you have and how much money do you need for you. I'm not talking about the business's money yet, but yours. How much money do you need on a monthly basis to pay for your housing, to pay for your debt payments for your college loans, to buy food, the various things that you minimally need to keep you afloat? And then, what resources do you have to satisfy this? Is it that you have big savings? Is it that you're starting this business on the side and you have some kind of corporate job that can pay your bills in the meanwhile? Maybe you have a spouse or other kind of partner who is going to cover that for a while. Maybe you can go live with your parents or another family member or a friend. Or maybe you're going to have to figure out how to make money as soon as possible to pay those things because you don't have a big savings. You can put some things on credit cards, but you can't really put rent or your mortgage payment on a credit card. How are you going to keep yourself afloat? Your average business takes 2 to 3 years before it makes a profit. In other words, before it pays you, the owner. Not all of them do. Some of them can make money in a much shorter time frame. It's typically a different kind of business. With a service-based business, you can make not as much money in the end, but typically make it quicker than if you're creating a product that will cost a lot more on the front end and will take a lot longer before you're going to make money. So if you have requirements for your life, you may want to start a different kind of business than what you may even want to end up with at the end, because dude, you just need to pay your bills. Also need to look at what other kind of support do you need so you can start this business. So for example, years ago, when I was starting and running my law firm, in the beginning, my son was very little. And so I needed childcare. Not 40 hours a week all the time, but I needed childcare so I could record videos, so I could have client calls. There's some things you can't have a toddler walk up and interrupt you for. So I needed that resource. I know some people have family who's local that can provide that for them for free, which is great if you have that. I didn't have that ability. So for me, I had to figure out, okay, how am I going to get childcare in a way that's not going to be too expensive in just a few hours a week, which is all I needed. And there were a number of different things I did, including nanny, daycare, babysitters, including a co-working space that had childcare, which was super cool, one of the best resources. You have to figure out what support you need for your life to work. If you have a big family that you cook for dinner for every night, maybe you have enough money where you can pay for things to get delivered instead of you having to cook, and that's going to free up time for you to work on your business. That's what I'm kind of thinking about here is what support do you need? Maybe you don't know anybody who's starting a business and your family and friends aren't very supportive of you starting a business. They think this is bizarre. You may need support of other entrepreneurs, other people starting businesses, and you can find that online, obviously. There are mastermind groups that you can join. There's networking organizations. You may need that kind of support, and you don't need childcare or food cooking or cleaning kind of support. Everybody needs a different kind of support, and you want to look at your life and how are you going to create enough space for you to have time and energy and money to work on focus on this business. Now let's talk about what is the business is going to need. So every business is going to need some amount of money to exist, to start up. Now, if you're creating products, they'll probably need a lot more money than if you're creating kind of virtual products like an ebook or an app versus a service that you're providing. Obviously, there are specific situations where you can create products that are very, very expensive to get off the ground and services where you need to rent space, so it's actually very expensive. But generally speaking, that's the rule of thumb. So looking at your resources that you have to get this business off the ground, where are you going to get the money? It could be that you have some rich aunt who is willing to invest in your business. I have clients where they had family members who gave them hundreds of thousands of dollars, either as a loan or as buying passive ownership in the business to help them get off the ground. It may be that you're planning to get angel funding and eventually venture capital funding. It may be that none of those things appeal to you and you're going to use your own savings for it, or you're going to kind of bootstrap it on your corporate job. You have a corporate job where you're going to take some of the money that you make every month and invest it in your business kind of on an ongoing basis. Maybe you don't have any of those kind of resources available and you're going to use your credit card, or you're going to need to get a loan. Maybe you don't have enough credit for that. You need to be real about what resources you have to get this business off the ground. It is totally possible to start a business with a very, very small amount of money for certain kinds of businesses and then just kind of bootstrap it as you go. But it's important to know what resources you have available at the beginning so you can choose what kind of business you're going to create and how you're going to go about doing it based on those resources. Going along with finding funding, another place you can find funding is through your network. So it could be that you're going to go to a whole bunch of people that you know, and they're going to invest in your business by literally just giving you money and you give them ownership shares. It could be that you do some kind of crowdfunding campaign. This can work very well if you're producing a product and people are going to be very interested in it. Maybe you have a really large network on social media that's built up already. And so there's a lot of people that you can go to help you find people to invest in the business, either through a crowdfunding campaign or by actually buying ownership shares. But everybody doesn't have that kind of network. Another network you might have is people in the entrepreneurial world. Perhaps you went to Harvard and got an MBA there and you know tons of people who start up businesses and know venture capitalists, and you'll be able to get your foot in the door with funding. Or maybe you're someone who has no idea, you know any people who are in that world, and so you're going to need to look at something alternative at least to get your business off the ground. Now let's look at what is the long-term goal you have, the long-term financial goal you have for your business. What I mean here is, are you building a business for you to just run? Like you enjoy this service that you want to provide, you enjoy creating these products, whatever it is, and you plan to run this business for some time into the future. Obviously not forever, because no one lives forever, but you don't have a plan for when you're going to stop doing it. Or are you creating a business to sell? You may want to sell to the employees. You may want to sell it as in getting venture capital and then going public someday. Maybe you're going to sell it to another company, get acquired, but you plan to sell it someday. That decision, which kind of initial direction you're planning to go, will change how you create the business. If you're planning to run this business as your life, as your job, then you need to have it in there that you're making money from the beginning, that you get paid a salary, you get paid some kind of wages, so you can keep doing this. However, if you're building a business to sell, it may not be as important for you to create revenue on a monthly basis because you're going to be creating revenue on the long term. Now, I don't necessarily think that's always a good idea. I think even for, a website app, you can build revenue into the business from the very beginning. And it will make you much more attractive to someone who wants to acquire the business if it actually makes money. But there are a lot of people willing to invest in an idea of a business that is not completely built out to create revenue. However, if you are building this to run, you probably are going to need to pay yourself. And those will be different types of businesses. Also, if you're going to build this business to sell, it needs to be sellable. I have another video that goes into that in details, but you want to look at having intellectual property like trademarks, copyrights, patents, trade secrets. You want to have assets that you're going to be able to sell to someone else. Versus a business that you're running yourself, you may still want to look at intellectual property. It's not quite as vital in many businesses. And also, it's not quite as vital that you can start out as a sole proprietorship, where if you're going to sell the business, you want to be an LLC or a corporation, which is a topic for another video, but which one you should be. But it makes more sense to do those formalities earlier in the process. Next, we're going to look at a different kind of goal. This is more of what is your motivation, not just for this business, but overall in your life. And this influences what kind of business you're going to actually enjoy running and what is your role in that business going to be. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about core motivations that motivate every single thing in your life. Why you start a business, why you have a job, why you do the hobbies that you do, why you get into relationships. Everything that you do comes from these core motivations, or maybe even one core motivation. So let me give you an example. Let's say you had decided to learn a new language. You decided to learn Mandarin Chinese or French or whatever it is. And one of your friends said to you, "Why are you learning French? Why are you learning Mandarin Chinese?" Your answer is going to look different depending upon what your motivation is. So for example, you may answer something like, "My great aunt is from France and French is her native language, and I want to be able to have more deep conversations with her. So I want to learn French so I can spend time with her and develop that relationship." Or your answer may be, "French is just such a beautiful language, and I love French culture, I love French food, I want to spend time in France, and the beauty of the language in and of itself is one of the reasons I'm learning." Or your answer may be that you want to expand your business in France. You want to be able to create content in French so you can build your business and reach those people. There are a lot of different answers you would get to that question. And for some of you, one of those answers resonates with you and the other ones don't. Okay? I would actually have a different answer, which is about learning. I like to learn new things, including looking at new languages and for languages that are new to me and how they're structured, purely because I find it interesting, because it's an interesting learning experience to see if I can do it, to explore a new culture, to explore a new language. Typically, people have one or two core motivations that inform everything that they do. So what are those? Learning. Learning is about learning and exploring and growing as a person. That's mine. Leaving a legacy. There's people who want to leave a legacy behind for either the world or for their children or whoever they're passing things on to. So they typically are building up, it could be money, it could be a business, it could be a book that they're going to write, but they want to leave something behind. Then there's people who are all about building something. This is related to leaving the legacy. There is obviously some overlap, but they're there to build something up. And it could be a business that they're building. It could be literally buildings that they're building. It could be a nonprofit that they're building, but they're there to build things, to create things. Another kind of person is there for the artistry or beauty of something. There's this intrinsic value in something that is enjoyable and beautiful. That's the person who learns French because it is a beautiful language. And then there is another kind of person who is there for the connection, the relationships. Not because of what they're going to get out of that relationship, or what they're going to learn out of a relationship or what they can build together with that person, but purely for the connection to another human being. So why is this important? You're going to create a different kind of business, or you're going to enjoy your role in that business if it goes to your core motivation. So for example, for myself, my core motivation is learning. So in any kind of business I create, in any kind of job I would have, I need to be learning new things and growing as a person and exploring all the time. And if I'm not learning anything, I am bored and I'm out. That's true for hobbies, that's true for relationships, everything. I always need to be learning and growing and being challenged all the time. For someone else, they build. And once the business is built, they're done. They built it. They're not really interested in running it. They're interested in building it. For someone else, it's about connection. It's about relationships. And there's a lot of businesses they could run, a lot of business roles they could have in a business, but they have to be making connections with people. They have to have relationships with people. If they're just behind the scenes working at a desk in a little box and doing something on the computer and they don't connect with anybody, they're going to hate that. They're not going to be able to do it long term. So my point here is doing some work to get at why do you do the things that you do is going to help you pick the right business and pick what your role is in that business. How long do you think you'll actually be doing it? What specific roles are you going to have versus what things are you going to outsource to somebody else or bring in a partner to do? Maybe you're the connections person. You don't really, even though you know about computer programming, you don't really want to build the app. So you bring in a builder who wants to build the app and you go out and you get venture capital because that's your thing. That self-awareness is going to help you pick the right business to run, to create the right version of it that's going to appeal to you and make sure that you have the correct role for you. So now let's look at what should you do first for this business. A lot of times I have clients who come in who are setting up all kinds of things in their business and putting huge amounts of money into developing a website, developing products, into setting up their LLC or corporation, all kinds of preliminary setup things. And you may need to do those eventually, don't get me wrong. But what I suggest is instead of starting with this huge investment, start with just one thing. Pick one version of your product, one version of your app, one service that you can provide. A minimum viable product is what they call it, that you can launch quick and dirty as soon as possible to see, is this going to work? Is this going to work on multiple levels? Are you going to enjoy doing it? Is it the kind of thing that's going to make money? Is anybody interested in it? You want to test this out as soon as possible. You don't want to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars on something if it's not going to sell, if it doesn't going to work, if you don't even like doing this thing at all. If you hate owning a business, not everybody's going to like owning a business, and you kind of don't know until you start doing it. So you want to test these out as soon as possible. So look at what you plan to launch as your product, as your app, as your service, whatever it is, and kind of scale it down to what is the most simple version of it that you can get out ASAP, maybe even within a month or two. It could be also a pre-ordering. So it might be that you are planning to create a product that actually will, it has to have development and have to have a factory and all these things to make it. Is there a scaled down version of it that you could put together enough that people could pre-order? People could sign up for a mailing list. Something such that you can test out whether or not this is going to work before you invest any more time or energy or money. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to do this at all, but you may pivot this. You may realize nobody understands this name. I have a colleague who was launching an app and they had come up with this really clever name and no one could spell it and no one could type it in the URL correctly and no one understood why it was named that. It was a terrible idea. It sounded great, but it did not work in the real world. So you want to test those things out early so you can pivot them as soon as possible, as soon as you get information back that they need to be changed. Or maybe you launch it and people love this and you can run with it in confidence, knowing this has a great chance of working. Similarly, I suggest you look at what is your initial target market. So what I mean is, who are these people that you're going to sell this product or service to? What do they want? What do they need? Do they have any money? The way to figure this out isn't just this intellectual research that you can do online, even though you may want to do some of that, is to launch a minimal viable product, minimal viable service to those people and see. There are a lot of groups of people who say they want something but won't spend money on it. Or they need something but they don't perceive that need and so they won't spend money on it. Or they totally need it and they totally want it but they have no money. Or they're out there but it's very difficult to reach them. Now you can usually figure out a way to reach them, but it takes time. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to still necessarily launch this product to those people at all, but you may do it a different way. So for example, one of the reasons I have a YouTube channel is because there were tons of people I was very interested in helping who very much need legal advice and tips about legal stuff for small businesses, but they don't have money to hire me. And so in this way, the YouTube advertisers are paying me to help you instead of you having to pay for it, which is a win-win for everyone. There may be something like that in your area if there's people you really want to help who don't have money. Also, if there's people who have a need but don't perceive it as a need, so they don't want it, you may have to do a lot of education to get them to understand they have a need. You may also just want to pivot to a different group of people who totally need this and totally want it and have money. The only way you're going to know is by experimentation, is by having something minimal that you can launch to people and seeing if people can buy it and do buy it. Another aspect of this is you want to see, do you actually want to be in business with these people? And what I mean is, if you're providing a service to businesses or to individuals, this is a group of people that you enjoy providing services to. It may be that they're jerks overall, and there's going to be some nice people in any group, but most of them are jerks, or most of them don't pay their bills, or most of them frustrate you all over the place. And you need to pivot to a different group of people. You want to make sure that what you're delivering isn't just a great product or service, but the people it brings in, your marketing, the people that your marketing bring in are people you actually want to provide that service to or provide that product to. Even if you're selling products online, you're still going to have some customer service. Is this a group of people who always want to get refunds? You really need to test that out and see, are these your people? The last initial item is to look at your potential branding. You've probably come up with or are working on coming up with a name for your product, for your service, for your business, for the brand that you're going to use for all your marketing. And you want to test that out to make sure that it resonates with people. Like I was telling you about a colleague who created a business with a name and that app, no one could type it, no one understood it, it just didn't make any sense to anybody. There's some things you can do about that if there's a little bit of it, but if there's too much, it just isn't going to work. You want to do research to make sure that you're not going to get a trademark infringement lawsuit hit on you. Before you spend tons of money getting a trademark, on creating a website, on getting a logo, on creating the various products for your business with the tags and the shipping boxes and all that stuff, you want to do due diligence to make sure this is going to work. You want to do legal due diligence to make sure you're not going to be infringing anybody. And you want to do marketing due diligence to make sure this brand resonates with people. Typically, the marketing stuff is going to be about doing that initial pre-launch, that putting out a website, doing social media marketing, seeing if people kind of get your brand and it brings in the people you actually can sell stuff to. And on the legal side, we're looking at trademark research to see, does anybody else, not only does anybody else have this trademark, but are there any other businesses out there who use this branding such that even if they don't have a registered trademark, it's going to be a problem for you. So now let's get into some practical aspects that you're going to have to decide before you get this business off the ground. One of them is the address and location of your business. So if you have an online business, you may be like, well, my business has no location. I just sell things on the internet. No, you're a human person and you are physically located somewhere. Now, it may be that you can have a address that is different than your physical location and you don't have to use your physical location anywhere. But the thing is, you are physically located somewhere. Sometimes that matters for where you're going to have to form your business, for the filings you're going to do. And you need to know from the beginning what that plan is for where you're going to be doing the work. If you're producing a product, perhaps it's going to be manufactured somewhere else. You're going to do drop shipping, whatever it is. But you are going to be doing the customer service here in your apartment at your desk. If you're providing a service, is that going to be provided at the client's or customer's homes? Is it going to be provided at some third-party location? Is it going to be provided here in your office? Now, this is an easy decision if you have a physical location, right? But there's a lot of people who have virtual businesses now where they consider their business not to be located anywhere, but they're human people who are doing work. There may be inventory that is physically located somewhere. Getting real about where your business is located is important because you're going to have to look at what rules apply to you. Perhaps if you are working from home and you're selling products and you're going to have the inventory at your home in the beginning, that might not work. It may be that the landlord, it may be that the city, it may be that your neighborhood association is not going to be cool with you shipping stuff out from your house or apartment and getting returns back there. And they're going to require that you have some other location to work in. You have to check your lease. You have to check the rules for your city or town or county. That's zoning rules. You have to check your neighborhood association documents to see if there are any rules that mean that this isn't going to work. The idea that you have for working from home isn't going to work. Similarly, if you're having products that you're not going to ship it out from your house or apartment, they're going to be in some warehouse and that's going to be shipped by a shipper, that may work really well. But where those physical products are is going to be a location for you. That impacts where you have to register your business and that impacts sales taxes. So you want to be cognizant of that. You want to be aware of where do I actually want that to be. Maybe you don't want it to be in California because you don't want to have to register here and pay the $800 a year franchise fee for an LLC corporation. Maybe you want to register it somewhere else. Or maybe you want to have your inventory somewhere else. It might actually make some more sense to have it more centrally located anyway. So keeping track of all your possible locations for your business is really important because you're going to make different choices along the way and you're going to have different legal requirements. Similarly, you need to look at what is the mailing address and contact information for your business. So some businesses, the mailing address is just about getting legal mail and bills and things like that and filling out forms. That my law firm, however, gets mail that is legal mail in the sense of I get legal mail for my clients. So I need to have mail that I don't just pick up once a month. I need to have mail that I actually get when it happens. You may be selling products and there are going to be returns. Some virtual mailboxes aren't going to be set up for you to get returns to them. That's going to cost a lot of money to store the boxes. It isn't really going to work. Where some virtual mailbox would be great for a service-based business where you're just getting the occasional bill and you can use that address on all the various forms you have to fill out. And then obviously you look at the features for any address that you're going to use if you're not going to be using the address of your physical location. So you want to look at, do they scan the mail? Do they forward it to you? How much does it cost? How many people can access it, etc. One of the biggest issues that I find for people starting a brand new business, especially if they're running it as a sole proprietor, is they use their personal social media, maybe even their personal cell phone number as the business. And you can do that, of course, but I suggest that you may also want to set up social media and a phone number and all that stuff for the business separately. The number of reasons to do that, one is just to keep boundaries and keep things separate so people don't just call your cell phone about business on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. And yes, that has happened to me in the past. But also because if someday you want to form an LLC or corporation, if someday you want to sell the business, Are you going to sell your personal Instagram account? Are you going to sell your personal Twitter account with the business? You probably don't want to do that. You probably want to keep that. And so by creating a separate account for your business on whatever social media you use, it means that there's a separation there. So you don't have to sell your personal stuff whenever you pass this business on to somebody else, or even just form an LLC or a corporation. So now we're going to get to legal stuff that you're going to have to decide. And one of the first initial legal things you're going to decide is what legal entity are you going to have for your business. The biggest thing that goes into this decision is how many owners are there, because there's different choices available based on how many owners there are. If you're just one person starting a business by yourself, you have the option of being a sole proprietorship, or you can form an LLC or a corporation. If there's 2 or more people starting this business together or investing in this business, even if they're passive investors, you can't be a sole proprietorship. In some places, if you're legally married, you can still do that. But putting that aside, you have to be a partnership, that's the default, or an LLC or corporation. Now, I've done many videos on should you be a sole proprietor, should you be an LLC, should you be a corporation. My short version is that a lot of people can start out being a sole proprietorship and eventually turn it into an LLC or a corporation. Or a lot of times the best of both worlds is an LLC that's taxed as an S corporation. If you're starting a business with multiple owners, I don't think you should ever be a partnership. As soon as you have enough funding to do the legal formation, you should form an LLC or corporation, because there's way too many risks as a general partner. So when you form an LLC or corporation, which one makes sense? A lot of times depends upon who those owners are. Are they both owners who are going to be running the business? An LLC may work very well. If they're going to be owners who are passive investors, if you're going to be looking for venture capital, angel funding, you may want to go ahead and get a C corporation. You can also do that with an LLC. It does depend on who those investors are. But you're likely going to need to do something a little bit more complicated if you have multiple owners than if you're just one person. One of the issues if you have owners who are not going to be running the business, they're passive investors, people who just gave money in return for maybe someday they'll make a profit, but they're not going to run the business on a day-to-day basis, is you want to make sure, to the extent possible, that they don't have the power to come in and randomly run the business, that they don't come in and use their percentage basis to take control of the business all of a sudden. So you want them to be passive investors. So you're going to structure the formality, the legal formality of the business such that they don't have control or can't randomly get control of the business. That's a topic for another video because it can get complicated, but something to be aware of that's very important so you can keep running the business how you and your active partners want. One of the last big decisions you're going to make is what's the name of this business? And I mean the legal name of this business. You have to kind of decide what legal entity you want first, because if it's a sole proprietorship, legally the name is just your name. Obviously the name can't be used by somebody else because you're not going to be able to file it with the Secretary of State in your state. But also, one thing to be aware of is to not get stuck at the legal name of your business. I've had many clients who take weeks, if not months, to decide what is the legal name of your business. But here's the thing. The legal name can be different than your branding, and you can change it later. Keep that simple. Don't get stuck at creating a name for your business so you can't move forward on things. A lot of my clients who are creating a business in the beginning and they are actually forming an LLC will use some version of their own name to create that business. It could be a service business, product business, it doesn't really matter, but they use some variation of their name or some family name to create that legal entity. They may have a DBA or fictitious business name registration for their branding that's totally different, but in a way to keep from being stuck at that stage, they create a legal entity that has a name that's kind of applying to any kind of business that they set up, just so they can get started. Again, this is attorney Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein. If you have any questions about things I talked about in this video, feel free to ask them below and I'll try to point you in the right direction. Thumbs up if you found this helpful. Subscribe if you like any more content like this, and look into hitting that join button so you can see how you can support the channel so I can deliver more content like this to you. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.